Have you ever sat alone, staring at your phone, waiting for a message that never came? Maybe you told yourself he has forgotten, moved on, stepped into a world where you no longer exist. But let's be honest, a part of you still wonders if that silence is truly the end, or just a curtain hiding something you haven't seen yet. Many women often misunderstand. They look at the silence, at the distance, and assume it means indifference. But men, they are not like that. They have their own way of carrying pain, one that is quiet and hidden. They will smile at the world while carrying a heavy heart. They will say they're fine while lying in the dark at night, running their hands through their hair, trying to silence memories that won't sleep. That silence is not empty. It is like a locked room no one can enter. And if you listen closely, sometimes you will hear the echoes of words never spoken, the lonely whispers of a heart not yet healed. Just because he doesn't speak doesn't mean he doesn't feel. On the contrary, sometimes silence is the most powerful proof that emotions are overflowing beyond what words can express. Imagine a river held back by a great dam. On the surface, the water is calm. But beneath, pressure builds, waves churn. Men are the same. They don't always know how to cry, how to name their pain. But that doesn't mean they don't carry it inside. Do you remember the last time he looked at you? Maybe it wasn't a long gaze. Maybe there were no touching goodbyes. But in that fleeting look, there was something heavier than 1,000 words. Some people, when they no longer care, they walk away with certainty. But others, they turn away because they know that if they look for just one more second, they might not be able to hold back their tears. The world today teaches men to be strong, to swallow their pain, to stand tall even when their hearts are falling apart. And that's why many women misread the calm facade. They think he has already forgotten. But behind that mask of peace, sometimes, is a silent storm, a rain that was never allowed to fall. There are pains that make no sound, not because they are small, but because they are too deep, so deep that words become useless. You know, in ancient philosophy, it is said that silence is sometimes the most honest form of communication. When he doesn't text you, doesn't speak to you, doesn't call your name anymore, it doesn't mean he doesn't think of you. It just means he doesn't know how to turn that longing into words. Have you ever noticed that contradiction? Those days when he is completely silent, then suddenly something slips out. A glance, a name casually mentioned, a trace on social media. It's as if he wants you to know, but is afraid to admit it to himself, that he still hasn't forgotten. If a man truly lets go, he will store you away as a memory. No need to revisit, no need to keep you present. But if he still holds on to that heavy silence, understand that you are still there in his mind, like a faded tattoo that cannot be erased. What often hurts women the most is believing that if there are no words, there are no feelings. But real feelings, they don't always need words. They show up in the way someone cannot move on, in the way they still look at you from afar, in the confusion they feel whenever your name passes by. And here lies the paradox. Men rarely express themselves with perfect words, yet they reveal so much in what they don't say. In that silence, they lay bare their pain in the most subtle way, for those sensitive enough to notice. Do you see now? Silence is never just silence. It is a wordless song where each quiet note echoes with loss. It is a letter never sent, but written over and over again in his heart. It is a glance that haunts a lifetime. And if you have ever stood in the silence of a man, remember this. Don't be too quick to think he no longer feels. Maybe, in those quiet spaces, he is fighting a battle you will never see. A battle between the mind that wants to move on and the heart that cannot let go. Never underestimate silence. Sometimes it echoes louder than 1,000 words. Sometimes it is the truest confession of all. I still miss you, I just don't know how to say it. And so, you fall silent too. Because you realize the most painful thing is not when someone leaves you in anger, in tears, in farewell. The most painful thing is when they leave you in silence, leaving behind an invisible void, heavier than any distance, because that silence was never the end. It was only proof that the story was never truly finished. Have you noticed that after long days of silence, a piece of the puzzle sometimes appears out of nowhere? Not a message, not a call, but a story that reaches your ears by chance. A mutual friend whispers, "He asked about you." Or maybe a social media post mentions your name, not directly, but just enough for you to notice. That is how men express pain. Not by saying it to you, but by letting it spill elsewhere, through other people. It's as if the heart wants to speak, but the mind has locked the door, so the feelings escape through tiny cracks. When a man truly closes a chapter, he no longer feels the need to mention you. You become a quiet memory tucked away, like an old photo in a drawer, covered in dust and untouched. But if he still mentions you, even in passing, even indirectly, it means something is still unfinished. Maybe you've heard him say to a friend, "She used to be this way or that way." It may sound like a casual story, but the truth is, each time he mentions you, he's unknowingly trying to rebuild the broken picture, putting the pieces back together to understand why it all fell apart. Men don't often cry for hours or write endless journal entries. They choose another way. They retell the story to others as a way to understand themselves. In psychology, there is a phenomenon called projection. When an emotion is unresolved, it doesn't disappear. Instead, it reappears in another form. For men, projection often looks like repeating the story, reliving it, testing different versions in search of the truth behind their pain. Imagine him sitting in a bar with a few old friends, a glass in hand, a smile on his face, and suddenly the conversation turns to you. Not always with bitterness. Sometimes it's just a small detail. She liked her coffee black, no sugar. Or she always left the window open before sleeping. These fragments may seem small, but they show that you are still alive in his mind, filling even the smallest corners. And most importantly, he doesn't tell you directly. He can't. Because if he texts you, if he speaks to you, it would mean admitting he still hurts. And a man's pride, his sense of self, is sometimes too big to allow that. So he takes the long way around. He lets others know, hoping the story might somehow reach you, as if by accident, as if it means nothing. But in truth, it is a silent message. I still haven't forgotten. There is an unspoken truth. Sometimes men need others to help them understand their own emotions. They bring you up again and again, hoping someone will confirm it for them. Yes, it really hurts. Yes, she really mattered. Because inside, the questions won't stop. Why did it end? Was it my fault? Or did she change? This isn't a game, and it's not manipulation. It is simply self-protection. When the pain is too heavy to carry alone, they release it into the world, just not directly to the one who matters most. They fear your silence. They fear rejection. They fear the door slamming shut. So they leave behind these scattered signals in conversations with others, like little scraps of paper drifting down a river, hoping you might see them. If you hear these indirect words, don't assume he wants to come back. And don't assume it's just habit. Take it as a quiet confirmation that you still exist in his soul, and that the silence on the surface is just a shell. I remember someone once shared that after the breakup, he never messaged her again. But for months, his friends kept hearing the same question. Do you know what she's doing now? And every time he ran into someone from their shared past, the topic somehow circled back to her. He wasn't brave enough to type into that empty chat box, but he couldn't stop talking about her either. That is indirect pain. Clear, but never direct. And here's what matters. You don't have to respond. You don't have to reach out or say anything. Sometimes, simply observing is enough. Because pain that is spoken through others is often the deepest pain of all. Like smoke rising from a fire burning low. You may not see the flames, but the smoke is undeniable. In old philosophy, there's a saying, people tell the same story over and over, not because they've forgotten, but because they still don't fully understand. So when he mentions you to someone else, it's not a sign he's moved on. It's a sign he's still lost in the maze, searching for a way out, but not yet finding the light. And you, upon hearing this, might feel torn. You might wonder, if he still remembers, why not just say it? If he still cares, why not message me? Sometimes, the answer lies in the complexity of pride. A man can endure loss, but it's hard for him to admit vulnerability. So he speaks in circles, hides behind others, sends messages wrapped in distance. This shows us that a man's silence is never simple. It has layers. On the surface, you see distance, but deeper down, you find fragments of memory, unanswered questions, and emotions that haven't yet found a name, and all of them point back to you. That indirect pain, though not a love confession or a plea for return, is undeniable proof that his heart has not been set free. You are the wound not yet healed, the chapter not yet closed. the memory still stirring beneath the ashes. So, the next time you hear your name mentioned somewhere, don't take it lightly. Behind every retelling, there might be a sleepless night. Behind every indirect question, a heavy silence. And behind every forced laugh, a space he still doesn't know how to fill. There are moments when you find yourself in the same space as him. Not long conversations, not caring questions, just a quiet presence. He stands there, as if by chance, as if the distance between you two is now something natural. But there is one thing you feel clearly, his gaze. He avoids direct eye contact. When you turn around, he quickly looks away, pretending to be busy, pretending not to care. But when you're not looking, his eyes follow you as if trying to memorize every little detail. The color of your dress that day, the way you laugh when talking to someone else, even the short silence when you glance down at your phone, that is not simple curiosity. It is a silent bond, an invisible thread still connecting you, even though you both once said goodbye. Because if a man truly forgets you, he no longer needs to look at you. He would see you as just another stranger in the crowd. But if his eyes still linger, still seek you out in a crowded room, it means you are still part of his inner world. The truth is, men often choose distance over closeness, not because they don't care, but because they care too much. Being near you stirs up emotions, threatens to crack the calm mask they've worked so hard to maintain. So they choose to stay away, like building a wall to protect themselves. But even that wall is not thick enough to hide the look in their eyes. Have you ever felt that presence? That sense that someone is watching you, even if they don't say a word. It's like a soft breeze brushing your skin, just enough to let you know you are still in their orbit. And the paradox is, sometimes you long for that gaze too, because it reassures you that not everything has disappeared. There is a saying, the eyes are the window to the soul. And in this case, those eyes have said everything he doesn't have the courage to speak. They reveal more than any social media post, more than any forced smile. They are proof of a heart that has not let go. I once heard a woman share that after the breakup, she and her ex met again at a friend's gathering. He said nothing to her, no kind greeting, not even a simple hello. But all evening, she could feel his gaze brushing past her. When she laughed, when she spoke, when she stepped outside to take a call. And though he tried to hide it, his whole body betrayed the truth he was trying to deny. Yet many women in this situation tend to go to extremes. Some rush in, try to talk, try to revive the past, hoping his gaze is a signal to return. Others do the opposite. They ignore, pretend he doesn't exist, as a silent form of revenge. But both approaches accidentally disrupt the delicate rhythm that is unfolding. Because the truth is, that look is neither an invitation nor a rejection. It is simply a sign that he is still struggling. He wants to look at you, but fears the emotion. He needs your presence, but fears his own weakness. That gaze is the line between what he wants and what he dares. If you ask, so what should I do? The answer is surprisingly simple. Just be present, calmly and confidently. No need to avoid, no need to approach. Just be there, like a quiet river. Because in that stillness, you become the mirror in which he sees the emptiness inside himself. When you do not react with drama, you accidentally become the reflection that shows him clearly what he has lost and what he still longs for. And let me ask you, the one listening right now, have you ever felt that moment? When someone says nothing but their eyes speak louder than 1,000 confessions? If you have, share it in the comments. You are not alone. Many others are listening to this story, and maybe they carry the same memories you do. And if you want to go deeper with me, to explore more of this silent language, hit subscribe. Because in the next chapters, you just might find yourself in every word. Back to the story. That gaze is not just observation. It is a form of longing. He cannot speak, cannot text, but his eyes allow him to maintain a quiet connection, as if to say, I'm still here, still watching you, even though we are nothing now. And that creates another paradox. Outward silence, paired with an intense inner presence. You hear no words, but feel more than 1,000 could ever express. This is how men love and grieve. Not loudly, not theatrically, but with weight and depth. Imagine it. Someone standing just a few steps away, eyes fixed on your every move, but his feet are nailed to the ground. He wants to come closer, but fear holds him back. He wants to speak, but pride seals his lips. And in that struggle, his eyes become the only way out. Some women will see that gaze and feel pain, because it reminds them the love isn't truly dead, only buried. Others will feel comfort, because at least they know they were once important enough to be hard to let go. Whichever you are, remember this: that gaze is not meaningless. It is the signal of a heart speaking what the lips cannot, and sometimes, if you are quiet enough to feel it, you will understand that silence was never forgetfulness. It was just another way of saying, he is still there, among the memories that haven't yet faded. After those quiet glances comes a strange new phase. He starts wearing the mask of happiness. You'll see him smiling more on social media, posting pictures out with friends, sharing upbeat quotes like, "Everything happens for a reason," or "I'm my own priority." At first glance, it seems like he has truly moved on, as if he's shouting to the world, and to you, "Look at me, I'm better than ever." But if you look closely, something feels off. A smile too wide to be natural. Words too polished to be real. This isn't real happiness. It's staged. Like a performance where he's the lead actor, the director, and the only audience waiting for your reaction. People often think that pain makes us retreat, become quiet, disappear into the shadows. But there is another kind of pain, the one that makes people overcompensate, overdo, and cover it up with noise. Like an empty room where the silence echoes too loudly, and so they blast the music just to drown it out. Men sometimes don't know how to sit with their pain. Instead, they choose to convince the world, and by extension, themselves, that they're fine. They believe that if everyone else sees they've moved on, maybe they'll start to believe it too. But you and I both know, real peace doesn't need to be proven. True peace is never loud. I remember a friend once told me about her ex. After the breakup, he suddenly became extremely active, posting every day, going to the gym, meeting people, checking in at every possible place. His social feed looked like a glowing album of happiness, but all it took was one accidental phone call to hear the truth. His voice sounded hollow. The eyes in those smiling photos lacked light. That wasn't joy. It was a loud scream trying to cover the silence inside. You could often tell by the pattern. Someone truly happy doesn't need to capture and prove every moment. They're too busy living it. They may even forget to take pictures. But someone trying to prove something, they need an audience. And the most important audience is you. Every photo, every caption, every song they post isn't really for everyone. It's a silent message to you. See me. See that I'm okay without you. And within all that show, there's a quiet hope that you'll react, even just with a glance. A fleeting moment of confusion. But the irony is, the more he tries to prove he's fine, the clearer it becomes that he isn't. Because someone truly free doesn't need to compete. They don't need to turn social media into a stage for the play titled, "I'm Still Happy." This reminds me of a Stoic metaphor. A wounded soldier doesn't run around shouting he's not in pain. He quietly bandages his wound and keeps moving forward. Only someone who hasn't accepted their pain feels the need to prove they're not hurting. So what should you do when you see it all? When he appears like the best version of himself? When everything seems to scream that he has forgotten you? The answer is simple. Observe. Don't react. Don't compare your life to his. Don't fall into the trap of who's happier now. That's exactly the stage he's unknowingly trying to pull you onto. You don't need to prove anything. Real peace never comes from competition. It comes from living in alignment with your own truth. Picture yourself standing in front of a mirror. If you're truly at peace, that image will radiate calm. But if you're anxious or afraid, your eyes will reflect it instantly. He's no different. All that noise is just a mirror reflecting the emptiness inside. Forced happiness is one of the clearest signs that he hasn't let go. Because joy doesn't need to be shouted. Real happiness lives in the quiet, sitting alone in peace, talking to someone new without the past interrupting. But if he still has to push so hard to prove it, then clearly the memory of you is still deeply rooted in his mind. There's a truth few dare to face. The harder someone tries to show they're happy, the lonelier they often feel. He posts photos laughing with friends, but when the night falls, the screen goes dark and the room fills with silence. And that's when the memory of you hits the hardest. So you don't have to do anything. No need to chase, no need to coldly ignore. Just hold your peace. Because that stillness speaks louder than any reaction. It shows him that you're no longer playing the game of who's happier. And in that silence, he'll be forced to face the truth. You've moved on, while he's still stuck in his own performance. A man's forced joy after a breakup is a form of self-protection. It's not malicious. It's not meant to hurt you. It simply means he hasn't yet learned how to face his loss, hasn't figured out how to heal. And sometimes, all it takes is your quiet understanding to make the difference. You've stepped out of the need to prove and become the calm mirror he can't ignore. Because in the end, someone truly at peace never needs to prove it to anyone. And that peace, your silence, your stillness, becomes the most powerful truth he has to face. He still hasn't forgotten. If forced happiness is the mask he wears to prove he's okay, then eventually that mask will slip. And when it does, you'll see something else entirely. Contradiction after contradiction. Confusing actions like shattered pieces that refuse to come back together. Have you ever experienced this? One day, he blocks you. Suddenly, with no explanation, no reason. You look at your screen and realize you've vanished from his world. You're stunned, confused, wondering, what did I do wrong? But then, days later, the wall disappears. He unblocks you as if nothing happened. Maybe he silently views your story or leaves a tiny trace, just enough for you to know he's still there. Then there are moments when he texts you, starting a brief conversation. Hope flickers, but just as suddenly he disappears again. Or worse, responds with cold, distant replies, as if he's forcing himself to engage. The sudden shift throws you into a spiral. What does he want? Does he still care? Or not? The truth is, even he doesn't know. This isn't a strategy. It's not a game. It's the result of an inner war, logic pulling him to let go, while his heart can't help but hold on. Inside him are two voices in constant conflict. One whispers, "Let her go. Don't drag the past any longer." But the other says, "She still matters. She's still here." And you become the battleground where those voices collide. These contradictions spill out into strange behaviors. Block, unblock, come close, pull away. Warmth followed by silence. He might post a cryptic quote and then delete it. He might text at midnight, then act like nothing happened by morning. His moods shift like spring weather, leaving you unsure what's real and what's not. But behind all that chaos is a simple truth. He's in pain. And when someone hurts but doesn't know how to express it, emotions find a way out through any available cracks. Messy, unfiltered, unpredictable. Like a bottle filled past its limit, water spills from every edge, with no direction and no sense. Many women faced with this confusion think, he's just playing mind games, trying to mess with me. But in truth, he's just as lost as you are. This is not a chess match. It's a storm with no place to land. I once heard a man admit, "I blocked her just so I wouldn't have to see her anymore. But when she was gone, I felt empty. I unblocked her not because I wanted her back, but because I couldn't stand her disappearing completely." It sounds like a contradiction, but it reveals something deeper. Sometimes men don't know what they want, except that they don't want to lose everything. In moments like these, you become the focal point of his inner tug of war. One moment, he wants to pull you close. The next, he pushes you away. He tries to appear strong, only to reveal glimpses of his vulnerability. It's like a clumsy dance. One step forward, two steps back, spinning in circles of contradiction. You might feel exhausted. You might think, if he cares, why doesn't he just say so? And if he doesn't, why not walk away for good? But look deeper. That very lack of clarity is the proof that something inside him remains unfinished. Because a man who's truly let go is steady. Only when there's still something there does the conflict between desire and fear arise. And here, once again, the answer isn't in chasing after him, nor in shutting him out with cold extremes. The answer lies in your steadiness. When he's in chaos, you must be calm. When he's confused, you must be clear. Because if you let yourself get pulled into his fragments, both of you will break even more. But if you stay centered, you become the anchor he silently longs for. There's an old philosophical image, the lighthouse. No matter how violent the storm, the lighthouse stands still, casting light without chasing the waves. It doesn't rush to save every passing ship, nor does it try to quiet the sea. It simply remains, unwavering, so the lost can find their way back. And in his storm of contradictions, you too can be that lighthouse. Remember, his erratic actions are not meant to hurt you. They are the expressions of a pain he doesn't know how to voice, a scream trapped inside, a confession never spoken. And if you are sensitive enough, you'll hear the whisper beneath all the chaos. I haven't truly let go. So don't respond with anger. Don't shrink yourself in confusion. Look at the contradictions like looking into a mirror. They reflect a man not fighting you, but fighting himself. And sometimes your steady presence is the only thing that can help him see the truth, that love doesn't vanish overnight. It fades slowly, leaving cracks, leaving pieces, and you are the witness to them all. After all the blocking and unblocking, the back and forth, sometimes he turns to another channel to speak for him, social media. It becomes the place where he can express himself without having to face you directly, a space where he can say the things he doesn't dare to send. And, strangely enough, his posts begin to speak in a language only you can understand. You open your phone and scroll past a song he shared. That melody, the one you used to play while driving through the night. A quote suddenly appears on your feed. Some memories never fade, they just hide in silence. You pause, wondering, is he talking to me? Then there's the photo of a coffee shop, the very one you used to sit in together. But this time, only one cup. It all seems accidental, yet filled with meaning. This is how men confess when they can't bring themselves to type in the empty chat box. Social media becomes their message board, a place to hang delicate signals, hoping you'll notice. Because if he truly didn't want you to see, he would have hidden it, would have kept it private. But he doesn't. He puts it out in the open, like a carefully staged play. And you are the intended audience. Some call it indirect messaging. But to me, it's like tossing bottles into the sea, each holding a tiny slip of paper with an unsent thought. He doesn't know if you'll ever find it, or even read it, but he still throws them. Because keeping it in is too heavy, and speaking it out loud feels too risky. Many women, upon seeing these signals, start to waver. They ask themselves, does he still love me? Is he trying to come back? But the truth is more complex. These signals aren't always invitations. Often, they are just a way to keep the thread alive. He wants you to know he still exists in your world. He wants to know he still has a place in your mind. I remember a girl who once shared that after her breakup, her ex kept posting songs tied to old memories. At first, she thought it was just coincidence, but after weeks of these subtle signs, she realized it wasn't. He couldn't say I miss you. So instead, he spoke through lyrics, through images, through borrowed words. Because borrowed words feel safer than honest ones. In psychology, this is called a safe distance. When people can't face their emotions head on, they look for an in-between, a middle ground. And social media, with its digital curtain, becomes the perfect outlet. He can express while still preserving his pride. But the irony is, the more he tries to prove he's okay through these indirect signals, the clearer it becomes that he isn't. Because someone truly at peace doesn't need to drop breadcrumbs. They don't hang messages on public walls. They are quiet because they've truly let go. There's an old philosophy that says, silence needs no explanation. It exists by simply being. And when you look at those subtle signs, you'll understand that noise is just another form of silence. A silence that cannot be spoken, yet echoes everywhere. So what should you do? The answer is simple. Don't react right away. Don't message him saying, was that song meant for me? Don't let curiosity drag you into his emotional maze. Because if you confirm it, he'll keep relying on this indirect way of reaching out. But if you remain calm, he'll be forced to face the truth, that he's caught in a cycle. Just observe. Observation is power. When you can see without reacting, you hold your power, the power of inner freedom. Because only when you stop decoding every signal do you step into true peace. And in that stillness, you shift from being a passive viewer to a quiet witness of a heart still healing. There's a metaphor I love. Social media is a stage. On it, he plays different roles. The happy man, the strong one, the one who's moved on. But the spotlight only shines when the audience is watching. And the audience he hopes for most is you. But if you don't clap, don't respond, don't join the script, then sooner or later, he'll have to lower the curtain and face the truth. These subtle signals in the digital space reveal not only that he hasn't let go, but also the deep inner struggle. He can't speak, but he can't stay silent. He doesn't want to lose you completely, but he can't bring you back either. He's stuck between extremes, and social media becomes the middle ground where he can float. And you, when you see all this, don't feel hurt. See it as confirmation. You were once meaningful enough to become the hidden language behind his posts, the unspoken message in his quotes and songs. You still exist in every quiet space he tries to cover with noise. In the end, remember this. True presence doesn't require signals. If one day he can face you, not through a post, not through a song, not through borrowed words, but with a simple, honest sentence, that's when he will have finally faced himself. Until then, every signal is just a stepping stone for a soul that hasn't yet found the courage. After all the subtle signals, after all the shattered contradictions, maybe you find yourself thinking, he'll find someone else eventually. Everyone does. But the truth is rarely that simple. Sometimes, a man can go out, meet new people, even laugh with someone new. Yet deep down, there's a space no one else can fill. Picture this. He's sitting across from another woman, listening to her talk about her favorite movie. But in that moment, your image flashes through his mind, the way you used to light up when sharing about that same movie, your eyes bright, your voice full of excitement. He smiles, but not at her. It's a smile meant for a memory. Or maybe he picks up his phone and sees a caring message. Someone is gently, sincerely trying to step into his life. But instead of feeling his heart stir, he feels empty. That message doesn't remind him of something new. It reminds him of how you used to text, how you used to care, how your words felt like home. This isn't because the new person isn't good enough. Often, they're even kinder, softer, more compatible. But the void you left behind isn't ordinary. It's like a room designed just for one. No matter who steps in, they don't quite fit. Because that room still holds your imprint, the chair you once sat in, the light you once left behind. Some say it's the first love that marks us most deeply. But in truth, it's not always the first. It's the love that cracked us open, revealed our softest parts, brought out the pieces we couldn't hide. If you were the one who touched that place in him, no one else can erase your mark. He might try. He might go on dates, soak in new attention. But during every conversation, every touch, he'll feel something missing. A connection he can't recreate. A harmony that doesn't return. And the more he tries to replace it, the more aware he becomes of the absence. This is the quietest war. And the most painful. Because on the outside, he's still living, still smiling, still posting. But inside, at night, he reaches out into the emptiness where you used to be. He walks familiar streets where once there were two sets of footsteps, now reduced to just his own. He wakes in the middle of the night, realizing no one lies beside him. And that silence weighs heavier than any goodbye. There's a paradox here. Men like to believe they are strong enough to move on, to replace, to rebuild. But the heart doesn't follow logic. The heart is stubborn ground, where memories linger longer than any advice. And in that ground, you still exist. The hardest part is, he can't say this to anyone. His friends see him smile and assume he's okay. The new person sees him polite and thinks he's ready. But only he knows that deep down, there's a room he never cleaned out, never locked. A room with your name still on the door. When a man doesn't truly let anyone in, it's not because no one else is good enough. It's because he hasn't stepped out of the old room yet. Every new relationship becomes a faded copy, a shadow of a memory. And the cruelest part is, no one around him understands why. Not even him. He just knows. His heart isn't ready. Right here, I want you to pause, breathe deeply, and reflect. Because this isn't just about him, it's about us. About how humans attach and leave marks on each other. Some people pass through us like wind, soft, fleeting, gone. But some, with one touch, carve their names deep within us. And that space they leave behind never really vanishes. Carl Jung once said, "We never truly forget what touches the core of ourself, because those aren't just memories. They become part of our personal journey, where we meet our shadow, our truth, through the eyes of another. And once that happens, replacing it becomes impossible." So if you ever thought his silence meant the story was over, remember this. Sometimes, silence is the loudest evidence of a battle still raging. A battle he never speaks of, but one you can feel in every empty space, every quiet post, every forced smile. And so we arrive at the final paradox. He wants to move on, but he can't. He wants to open his heart, but he closes the door. He wants to love again, but your absence still echoes inside him. Maybe one day, he'll learn to live with that echo. Maybe one day, your memory will become a peaceful part of his past, no longer painful. But until that day comes, remember this: silence never means forgetting. It's just the heart's way of wrestling with something it still cannot name. And if there's one thing I hope you carry with you after hearing this story, let it be this: never underestimate the power of silence. It may be just a pause between two words, but within it lies an ocean of emotion. It may be the space between two people, but within it stretches a thread that hasn't broken. Sometimes, the loudest scream doesn't come in sound. It comes in the stillness. And in that stillness, you might still be the one living in his heart, more than you ever realized. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this story. If this message touched your heart, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss the next journey we take together. Your support means the world to me.